Hello friends, and welcome back to the Scrapbook and Cards Today YouTube channel. This is Victoria Calvin, and today I have a gorgeous Easter themed card using the Spellbinders Spring Label Motifs etch dies. This is a fantastic die set that you can create a gorgeous spring or Easter themed card to give to your loved ones. Now here is the die set that I'm using. Of course, you see the lattice along with the frame. Those are three separate dies, and you'll see me use that here in just a second. And there's also dies to create those tiny little flowers as well as the leaves and the little bunny. And the sentiment, I'm actually going to be using another Spellbinder stamp and die set, which you'll see here in just a moment. Now, in addition to the die set, I'm also going to be pulling in a embossing folder from Spellbinders, and it's called Geo Screen, and that's going to create a lot of texture for my panel for this card. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and emboss the panel. The panel is measured at 4 by 5 1/4. I'm spritzing that with a little bit of water because what that does is it loosens up those paper fibers, so when you are embossing your paper, it won't crack the paper and it lends to a deeper impression. And look how beautiful that is. So this project is going to be somewhat of a tone-on-tone background. Next, while I still have the navy blue cardstock out, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the background of the lattice as well as the lattice design that's going to overlay on the solid frame. And so I'm getting those positioned on my die cutting plate, and I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. Once that's done, I'm going to continue to die cut the other elements, the flowers and the leaves, using a variety of colors, not only from my stash, but also some colors from the Spellbinders Essentials collection. Whenever I'm creating a card that has a ton of interest and little delicate details, I like to die cut all the elements first, and then I'll assemble them. So right now I'm assembling all of the little flowers and the leaves, and you'll see that here in just a second. Once I have all the tiny elements assembled, then I can go ahead and build out my card scene or my card design. So for this particular flower, I'm adhering the outer petals along with the center petals. And then I also have a tiny little die cut that is going to go in the center of the bottom center of the flowers, and that's going to be the top of the stem. And then once those are in place, then I'll go ahead and adhere the flower to the stem itself and then finish out the rest of the details for the flowers. And here's this flower element all put together and ready to be adhered on the card front. I also have 3 little white flowers that I want to assemble as well, so I'm going to pop in the centers of those flowers. And then I want to give a little bit of dimension to these flowers. So I'm going to pull over this little stylus tool here from Tonic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rub the center of those little flowers just so that they pop up a little bit, and that'll give them a little bit of height and dimension. Now that all the flowers are assembled, I am going to ink up the edges of this tiny little bunny. In the die set, it does include this bunny die, and what I'm using is some spun sugar distress ink from Tim Holtz, and I'm just inking up the edges just to give it a little bit of dimension. And I also punched out a little black circle so the bunny would have eyes. Now that all those elements are ready to go, it's time to build out the card. So I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base in navy blue, and then I'm going to adhere a 4 by 5 1/4 panel that I embossed using the Geo Screen embossing folder, and I'm going to adhere both of those together using some liquid glue. Once that's in place, I'm ready to attach the lattice frame to the solid frame. I love how the tone-on-tone effect looks when this card, that deep, rich navy blue along with the texture, is just absolutely gorgeous. Once that's in place, of course, that glue will dry clear, so not to worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and add some foam adhesive to the back of that lattice frame so that it has a little bit of height on the card. And I'm just using some foam adhesive from scrapbook.com. I'm going to center that right in the center portion of the card panel. Next is the fun part, and that's assembling all the little florals. So of course you can create any design that you want to. I like to cut out a bunch of these little tiny elements so that I have plenty to make multiple cards. For added dimension, I'm adding a little bit of foam underneath some of the tiny little florals, and then I'm going to come in and layer some of the leaves that come with the die set. I like to tuck them in here and there for added interest. I also like varying the length and the design of the different leaves that come in die sets like this. So you see the longer leaf stems, and then of course the little small individual leaves. Once that's all in place, it's time to adhere the little bunny. So I'm going to grab a foam square and I'm going to adhere her right there in the top center. I also left space for a sentiment, and for this I'm going to be using the clear stamp of the month from March 2022. This is called Spring Gnomes. I just grabbed this out of my stash, part of my Spellbinder stash, and I'm going to stamp the words Happy Easter. I'm just using some white cardstock from my stash as well as some black ink, and this particular set does have a die that goes with it. So once that's all stamped up, I'm going to go ahead and die cut this sentiment out and adhere it to the card. I want my sentiment to have a little bit of dimension, so I'm grabbing some foam squares, and these are kind of very thin foam squares, and I'm just adding little strips to the back. And then of course now I'm going to adhere that to the card, so the happy is going to go first, and then the Easter after that, right underneath the bunny. Now it's time to assemble a card base. I'm just using a pre-folded card from my stash. I'm going to add some liquid glue behind the panel and adhere that right directly on the card base. And once this is all set up, I just love how those florals look. I'm going to add just another small little detail. I'm going to grab some pearls, and I put those in the center of the white flowers. I had already pre-made the pink one, so those already had the pearls in the center. And with those little details added, this card is complete. I love all the texture and the dimension, that beautiful floral spray. You can rearrange those florals however you want. Here's another card project that I made, just slightly different, but still in the same vein, on the horizontal using that lattice die along with the bunny and the florals. There's so many creative possibilities with this die set. To see photos of this project and to learn more, make sure you head over to the Scrapbook and Cards Today blog. Thanks so much for watching.